So let me tell you a little story. I think 12 years ago, I think back in 2007, so that's 11 years ago, I met my wife on the West Coast, and I was coming from France, and I was traveling and doing some training. And her and I had this vision that we were going to find a place to do some farming and homesteading, have our own little place. And really long story short, but she grew up on the East Coast, I grew up in France, we were on the West Coast, and it felt really far from family, really far from everything. And we decided to come back east, and our long journey led us to visiting some friends in the Brattleboro area and staying here for a little while, and we really loved the area. And we kept coming back to Putney, a community supper for the puppet theater. We went to the orchard, took walks in the orchard. Everything was just magical around here, and we quickly realized that Putney was really our community. This is where we wanted to settle. Did I tell you last time that I lived in Ireland for 3 years?
No.
Did I mention that? That's really where I started farming, actually. I was doing some woofing. Have you heard of woofing? Volunteering in farms. And I traveled across Europe, all over Europe, in my early 20s. And then I ended up working on this farm on a small island of the west coast of Ireland. Fell in love with it, ended up staying there for 3 years. That's really where I deeply steeped myself into small-scale organic farming. And one of the most amazing things on that island where I was is that it had the remnants of many old monastery that dated back to St. Patrick's days, the 500s, 600s, really old, with old stone walls, old churches, and also beehive huts, like the monks lived in little stone huts. Anyway, a very inspiring place. And one of the gardens that I worked in on that island was a walled garden, so it had like a 10-foot high stone wall all around it for an area that was probably, let's say, the size of that barn. That whole area was walled in, because on those islands there's so much wind, and walled gardens are a thing, in monasteries, and I often found like a walled garden is really there's something very sacred about it. You feel sheltered, protected, and you work inside, you cherish that soil, generation after generation. And I always had this fantasy that I would build a walled garden. It's kind of an insane vision. But one day I was working in the greenhouse and realized that this was my walled garden.